Okay, well, let's jump in. So today we're going to go in and we're talking about one of my favorite topics of AI. So I know AI changes all the time, right? I feel like that's one thing is what I taught 7 months ago has evolved even more in a lot of factions and functions, right? So I wanted to talk about AI in general, and this is going to be a little bit of an overview on certain topics, at the same time dive deeper and really be kind of a push to help you guys want to play with it more. Because the reality is the world's changing quickly, right? Your job as an agent needs to evolve with that because even that was one I quote from Gary Vee. He said that the amount of knowledge that you need is going to be not as important as other things that you know how to do because of the AI and a whole bunch of tools that are happening, right? So AI, here's kind of where things started, right? The large language models. You have it where AI is kind of started here. This is a lot of what we've been talking about. We talk about, okay, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, right? All of these different AI large language models are kind of the base where things have been happening. I've seen a lot of you now. That's of course how, the broker moment images have been by these large language models, right? I've seen a lot of what you guys do for your editing. If you're angry at somebody and you throw in the text message into the large language model and say, make me sound nice, right? I know that you guys have done that, which is great, right? There's a lot of cool functionalities, but this right here is in a lot of ways the brain, right? This is kind of what's been happening of generating text, having the reasoning, having the ideas, and having it so that if you use it correctly, that you're upgrading your thoughts by having somebody that you can connect with, chat with at a high level, especially the better you use it, right? So this right here is kind of that foundational point that has been evolving rapidly, but also is really, really far along, right? So here's the big ones. Up on stage, they talked about this at a family reunion, but these right here are kind of what's surfacing right now to the top as the big players. Maybe we'll see some more, right? I think there's going to be some more things that are coming in. But these right here are the ones. So I'm just out of curiosity, by raise of hands in this room, who's using ChatGPT? Okay. By raise of hands, who's using Gemini often? Okay. Who's using Perplexity? Okay, good to know. Who's using Meta AI all right? Right? Who's using Claude? All right, a few of you. And who's using Grok? Okay, cool. So the reality is all of these are good and different in different ways. They all have a different thing that they've been programmed to, that they've learned, that they have had their structure built off of. So kind of what I'm going to talk about is each of these first, and kind of the use cases. Because what I've realized is a lot of times when I'm explaining something, I talk about how I jumped here, and then I went over to this one, and then I went over to this one, and a little bit of why and what that aspect is of what you're doing. So we're going to start with ChatGPT. ChatGPT in a lot of ways is kind of still the jack of all trades. And by raise of hands, you guys, the majority of you have been using that the most, right? It's developed by OpenAI. This one is used, it's the most used right now, AI, and it's thinking it's easy to work with. It thinks as a team member, and it's good at a lot of things. It's just good overall in a lot of things. The reality also with ChatGPT is it's programmed to be a teammate, and I think for a lot of you, it likes to flatter you a lot more because it it wants to be winning in your eyes. So, which is good because if you tell it to be mean or you tell it certain things, it will then follow that. It does. Yep.
What I want to hear.
Correct. And that's where a lot of times, like if uh-huh. I know.
Yeah.
It's what you need. It's what you need. No, I love it. So, but I want to point that out because that's again going to be that what you use it for and where it goes, and then how do you use that to the highest level, right? So knowing that is going to be the part that you say, hey, great, what do you do with it? Okay, Gemini. Gemini has become, of course, a massive, massive power player. It's very much the research driven. If you're wanting to learn about anything because it's tapped into Google, it will scan and go through everything in Google to really make sure that you're getting that going. It's also getting really, really powerful at everything that it's connected with Google. So Google Sheets, Google Docs, Google Calendar, all of your Google interface is becoming a very, very powerful aspect to help you save time. Yeah.
That within Google, you don't have to like have like another subscription like you do for chat.
You can always pay for the upgrade, just like anything. So most of all the subscriptions are somewhere of $0. You can use it to some degree. Usually right around $20. You can use it for a whole lot more. And then there's always going to be something around $100 or $200 plan, depending on your usage, right? It's based on usage and a little bit of just priority on speed, right? But so yes-ish. The cool thing with Gemini is if you go and sign into your @KW one, you do get a Gemini Pro account for free. So like Scott, what's your? You don't even use your. Never mind, that's about it. Right. So your KW email. If you sign in with your KW email into Gemini, then you do have a pro account with that. So KW has a really cool like connection with a lot of stuff. This is well, and that's the reality is you're still going to need to be jumping between them. Because remember, there's a reason why they're all good at different things. So I don't think there's any one of these that I would say stop using and only use this. Yeah. Yep. So, but this one's really good for that research side. So if you're wanting to dive into that, then this is going to be a spot to say, hey, if I want to create a social post and I need to look up this, this, and this is going to be a great spot to jump to be able to grab that part. So this is why I jump between a lot of the different ones in this way because of that thinking and thought process, right? The next one's Claude. Yeah. It's different. So the thing is, I don't think it does as much. It's much more of a researcher. So it's not going to be as much of that communication aspect. Right. And it's everything will hallucinate depending on how well you give it and what the prompt is. So that's why you always have to check your work. You always have to check what it's doing because hallucination in AI is always going to exist until maybe it will go away sometimes. But at the same time, it's getting less and less because of how they're all getting better. I know. I know. I don't know. Probably a little. So, right. I know. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where you understanding what it can do, and I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in time it can do that. But there's a lot of things that it's probably trying to do that it's just not capable yet. And that's where it's always that interesting mix of where and what. So Claude, for example, is the polished writer and nerdy coder. So if you're wanting anything with writing, or if you're wanting anything with coding, then this is where you go to say, hey, how do I do that? Right? If you're wanting for Excel, I have it where I've used it to make me a website to send to a client. I've had it where there's all these different use cases that you can use from here to get it up and going, right? If you're wanting to do a blog, you might go to the couple other ones and come back to this for it to write it in the format that you want. And then you go and edit it more, right? Because you always should have a little bit of that pulse. Perplexity. This is an answer machine. So similar-ish to Google, but the Perplexity is very much, it's not as much of a writer in that way, but it is very much get and find all the activities, answers, and it loves citations. The best thing with citations, of course, means that you can click on it and see where it's getting its info. So you can then say, oh, do I want to use that? Yes. Do I want to? Not, right? but Perplexity is a great one and a great one for fact checker. Yeah.
So, like, if you get Perplexity, you get ChatGPT.
I've heard that too. I don't know exactly how all that works, but yeah, you can play with it. Yeah.
ChatGPT how to do it.
Right. I do see that all the time on ads of being like, this, so yeah. But you can dive into it and see. Again, it has a purpose and it has what it's really good at. Right? Okay, Meta AI. This is your social media power player because, of course, they own most of the social media, right? It's your go-to for automations on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger. They're making some big power moves in the world right now that are pretty interesting. So it's fascinating to see what the next little bit's going to happen, but very much being focused, they're focused in that social space, right? And then Grok is your edgy brainstormer. It's designed to be more conversational, right? Witty, and maybe even a little bit more controversial with you, right? Grok has many of the same features as ChatGPT with the added feature of real-time information from X. X is Twitter and all of those things that are owned by that, right? So great aspects in that way. Again, another powerful tool. All of those are used in different ways, and that's kind of that fun part. So if we're looking at some use cases, right? So ChatGPT, okay, if you're wanting some listing copy, if you're wanting long-form blogs, email campaigns, neighborhood guides, strategic business plans, voice role play scripts, you've seen me use those with you, multimedia, a lot of things. Gemini, analyzing market research, rates, typo. Synthesizing data, creating property comps, summarizing legal docs, rich media content, right? Perplexity, newsletter writing, fact finding, data-driven explanations, brainstorming, right? Market research, meeting topics. Know it all, right? That's the meta up there. Right? Custom tools for different things, social media automation. Claude, polished writer and nerdy coder, complex coding, web development, third-party app integrations, detailed policy explanations, brainstorming, refining your tone / how your voice, that kind of thing, right? And Grok, rapid market trend assessments, and so on and so forth. So this is for you to kind of say, hey, great, as that aspect, what does it look like? How am I using it? And where am I going? And maybe having to bounce back and forth because they're different. Here's the crazy part. So this is the CEO of Alphabet, right? He says, artificial intelligence could be more profound implication for humanity than electricity or fire. Think about, of course, electricity and fire and what that did for us. Yeah. Very little. Oh, wait. Sorry. A lot. This is going to have a massive effect on the world in general. So thinking about not only where are you at, where's your pulse on it, but what are you doing next is going to be very important. Okay, so to go a little bit into how to use those LLMs, large language models, I'm going to give you 2 quick strategies that I've reviewed in the past, but I want to kind of just retouch on. Because the reality is, this right here, right? This is a non-negotiable. Like, learning and how to use AI is going to be where it changes your business, right? AI in business is projected to grow at a compounding annual rate of 35%, meaning early adopters will dominate the industry within the next 5 years. So this is my push for everyone, not only here in the room, but in our KW world, to start tinkering with AI, right? Have some time where you're figuring out how can you use it and get better at it. So the more that we get together every couple of months, very focused on AI, we can have more cool things that we're doing with it, right? So this right here was one of the ones that I loved of it's collaboration, right? AI is not meant to replace you and remove any aspect of humanity if you do use it right. The 20-60-20 rule is what this talks about. So the first 20% needs to be you. You need to become a more efficient and better person at doing prompts, The better you get at your prompt and the better you get at the direction and what you want as the goal and outcome, the better that the AI will be able to go figure that out for you. Because AI's goal is to do what it's told, right? So if you tell it and it can go and actually do that in the best way, then the middle part becomes better. So that AI goes and does stuff, and then you refine it, you review it, you double check it, so on and so forth, right? Because the reality is you need to be the one who is reviewing and looking at things. But this approach makes it so that you're not completely relying on AI for everything, but at the same time enhancing what you're already doing or what you want to be doing, right? So the next part is this prompt. This was one of the ones that someone on the MREA podcast talked about. Phenomenal prompt of crit, right? So this framework is context, role, instructions, and the type of outcome, right? So what you're wanting it to have at the end for crit, right? Task is what he says, actually. So he says task. Yeah.
Podcast wasn't his eye interview.
Yeah,
He would say,
it was.
ask me 3 questions to help me to help me refine my idea.
He does. So he has the instructions of what he wants, and an interview is one of his favorite ways.
Okay.
So interview, he talks about, hey, great, ask me X amount of questions, one at a time to better understand what I'm doing. So some form of an interview helps you with that. Or if the instructions might be different. Might be go do this, then go do that, then interview me, ask me this, right? But so the instructions, and I do think that it is more powerful if you have it in some form of an interview style. So perfect. He did mention that as a high point. So, but doing it in a format that might help you to understand and be able to build off of is going to help you become a better prompter, a better person, better at explaining what you want done. And the fascinating part with this is similar-ish to asking an employee, similar to maybe even asking our kid. The whole prompting aspect is fascinating because the better we can explain what we want to have as the outcome, the more likely, maybe not with our kids, but the more likely it will get to that outcome, right? So really fascinating. But I wanted to go through those 2 frameworks for you to best understand. So here's an example. Right? I'm preparing slides for a presentation about AI tools. Act as a technology trainer for beginners. Explain the 3 layers of AI, LLMs, automation, and agents. Provide conclusive bullet points suitable for a presentation slide. Sounds very familiar to what happened.
You can't do that by yourself.
Huh? Right? So pretty fascinating, but that's kind of where you can then go into what, where, and how. So the reality of why this is important is, we talked about it a lot, is the trust signals that AI is looking for is going to be important for what you're doing. So I'm flipping it now, right? If we're learning all this stuff from large language models, what's out there, where is it getting its information? So you guys as agents can also make sure you're standing out, right? Because if you want to be in that play of that a large language model is saying, hey, this person should help you out, right? Then being the best on the trust signals will help you out. Here's 20 of them. I'm not going to go into depth of them, but reality is the more that you put yourself and have it where you have content out there is going to help you to rise more to the top to be able to have it where people can see what you're doing. What? So I'll simplify it. And that is not a picture of Gary Vee. That is fun. Right? So this was a quote by Gary Vee at the, that's funny. At Family Reunion. He said, the context you make today will determine if you show up in AI searches tomorrow. So back to this list, this is all different things that you can be talking about and making sure that you have in your world or ecosystem, right? Transparency on costs, transparency on what the what questions need to be answered. All of these things are just good for you to be there, which will help. Not saying that's a necessity, because honestly, YouTube and social media, according to Gary Vee, are going to have it be um, where that's the main place where your content's going to be showing, right? So the more that you do from that, the better it is. So kind of cool, right? Okay. So the reality is, what's your plan? What are you doing with it? Kind of going from there of what's next? Because ultimately, I just want you guys to be starting to use this more and more. A lot of you have been, because I talk with you a decent amount about it. But how can you continue to elevate that and get that in the right spot? Okay, and reality is, why does this matter, right? Here's kind of the revolution, the internet revolution versus AI revolution. Look at the amount of money that was spent for years 1 through 8 of the internet revolution versus the amount of money that was spent in the AI revolution. This, of course, was August of last year is when Gary Keller had this and he was talking about it. So this is a little bit of an old slide, but I feel like this has so much value for what you're looking at and what you're doing, right? And this goes into this next part of, and I'd be curious in what your guys' thoughts are. Where do you think that we are at in this slide? Because this is what Gary Keller had in there, right? There we go. Where do you think we're at, right? I mean, on this thing of AI. So you have adoption on the left side, the time frame on the bottom. Do you think we're past the turning point? Do you think that like there's still a chance that AI goes down and gets out of the way and we never touch it again?
No.
No, I don't think so, right? We're getting up here somewhere in the mass adoption. So the question is, where and what does that look like in the future?
I think we're actually gonna see we're gonna see both. And what I mean by that is I think we're gonna see something like the cell phone explosion of when I was in high school in the 2000s. And well, really though, it's like back then, okay, you had a bajillion cell phone companies. Every company had a different thing they were doing. And you had like, okay, like this is just an example, right? You have
No, it's true.
you had like the sliders this way, you had the sliders this way, you had the flippers. I mean, you had so many different things, and then everyone kind of chose to massively adopt the technology that worked the best and suited their needs the best, and everything else died off.
Correct.
I think with AI now, there's like a bajillion. Everyone's got an AI that they think is the best, and they're gonna market to you for everything. And I think some of those are gonna drop off, and others are gonna explode.
I would agree with that. And I think that though the mass adoption of who's using AI is where it's not going to go away. But the question is now, what AI tools probably go away, right? Because you even look at each of the big players, they're having to do more and more with AI, right? I was even reading up yesterday about how Apple, their project name is Ferret, which is funny, but for their AI, I don't think it's public facing that way, but they're working on getting it where they're having some awesome integrations and aspects with their AI that they're building, right? Each one's going to have to do something at a high level or who's going to be the ones that are raising the top and who dies off. I think that's a natural thing, but I don't know. Okay. So the next piece was the AI stack is automation. This has now been going on for a while. There has been a lot of different ways that you can automate things. You can either use Zapier, Make, or N8N, and you can have it so you do something, it goes and sends that information to one of the LLMs, it sends back you information, and you can have it so that you're like, hey, this right here is automation. So if I wanted this done, all of these processes happen that I programmed and planned out, which has been really cool. And that's kind of been a little bit more happening, not as much of what we've talked about in general, but is very much happening of what people are doing, right? A lot of places will have it where the automations are already plugged in for you and you just paid for it in a certain way, right? But that is reality. So the cool part is, if we look at leads, listings, and leverage is going to get more and more where you can strongly use some form of AI to help make your life more efficient, easier, and better, right? And we already have been. Even just using the LLMs of upgrading and using it, I do feel like I've seen a lot of you use that as a good leverage tool. So the next part, which is started honestly just a couple months ago, has been hitting really, really hard, is AI agents. So AI agents are really now getting to a point where they're now doing things autonomously for you. So you can tell it to do something, you can set up tasks, you can do a lot of that in different ways to help you build and have it so you're getting more leverage and time back. So the two I'm going to throw up here and talk about really quickly are Manus, if you haven't heard of it yet. And then so we'll start with Manus. This one's really built for business owners, right? It's to help you market, research, gather information, assist you in creating content like emails and social posts, and manage day to day. Manus was bought by Meta just recently. So this was going to be a powerhouse integrated in a lot of ways with that. Cool part again, great. You go pay a small subscription and now you can use this. I think I have a quick video on here showcasing a little bit about it. But ultimately, this is one of those tools where if you kind of go through and look at what it looks like, then you can kind of figure that out. But this is on YouTube.
What if a single prompt could build a world? What if every frame had purpose before it was ever shot? What if your idea became not just images, but scenes, shots, and stories? What if video was the output? Manus now generates video, structured, sequenced, and ready to watch. So I wondered, what if I asked it for legends? I asked for Chinese mythical beasts from ancient China. Manus studied the lore, drew them to life, animated their stories, and built a site that let me scroll through legend. This is Manus, your vision, imagined, illustrated, animated, and rendered into reality.
So, present next. So Manus is an interesting one, and I think that it's an agent that you can tell it to do a task, and it will do some things in certain ways. I think that it's a great one that I'd recommend for you to play with and see what you can use it for and what you can do, right? Do I think it's going to solve everything? No, right? At the same time, what does that look like and how do you get there? I think for you guys as real estate agents and professionals, it's going to be a good tool for you to start figuring out. And I'd love to hear what you do with it, right? I want to hear those results that you guys are doing from playing and doing stuff. The other one, this is crazy. I probably don't recommend that you do this right now. This is what I'm doing right now, and it is fun, but it is crazy, is OpenClaw. This is one basically that you build it on your computer and you have to program it and then you have to do certain things and you have to hook it up to. So I have mine right now hooked up to Claude and OpenAI and I have it doing things for me. This morning I sat down and I was like, hey, I want a new dashboard for my whole computer and I want you to go plan it. Here's 3 YouTube videos that I've done for researching it. I want you to listen and read and learn all about what they said. Come back with a full plan for me and build it tonight while I'm asleep. Came back, it did all the research, it went through, and it said, hey, great, I'll start working on that tonight after we're done with all of our tasks today. I can text it. So it has a name, it created its own image for me. It is basically like my own little Jarvis. But I've now been spending way too many hours on it at night, right? So getting to be like in this spot, but that's where I want to kind of show not necessarily like, okay, what you should be going and doing yet with this, but that you should go and figure out and tinker with things. I think Manus is a very easy one. It really is laid out well for you to go start tinkering and having some tasks that are just done for you, right? One example, I have a friend up north who he did it with his OpenClaw and with his Manus. And he said, hey, I need to buy or I need to. I want to buy a Lake Pal shares for 1 week a year in this time frame. I want you to go and search all the web, build me a spreadsheet with all the details, the pros, the cons, and everything about each one, and then notify me when you're done. So it went out there, it built a whole thing, went through, and then he said, can you please make that into a slide deck for me? Instead, I just want to see also the photos of it. I want it to be no more than 2 slides, and so it can help me make my decision. Went back out there, got all that information, put it onto a slideshow for him so he can then go show his family and be like, all right, here's the 8 different ones that are out there and available. And he went and had that. So the reality is, what are the things that you can do in life, in real estate, where you're having it do this at that level, right? How can you go out there and use not only the large language models to continue to increase our thinking, having it so that we have more of that aspect of growth, but also then turn around and say, hey, what things can I automate that either before you had to have a full-time employee or a virtual assistant or something to really get you to that level that you can now say, hey, great, my AI can text me every morning at 8 o'clock and tell me what's on my schedule, summarize all the new things that came up about AI for me to know and read, and kind of a thing, right? So this is more than anything a push for you guys to really figure out and go from there. Because, okay, great, Elon Musk said this, right? The pace of progression in artificial intelligence is incredibly fast, close to exponential. The world's changing. I know I've heard Shoni talk about it now for almost 2 years of saying it's not too late to jump in. I don't know when that point will be where you're like, oh, it's too late. Now it's over my head, until it's mass adoption that you just use what people use instead of understanding it at a high level. So, strong push. Go keep on using it. Keep on figuring out what you can do with it. Play with it. We'll use more. I'll show you more tools. I'm going to continue to bring more of that here to our classes, but I wanted to go through what's been changing in the world so you can kind of keep on seeing that at that level.